Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have an LCX video here for you today. LCX on the exchange, add an exchange. That was nice and easy. We'll be talking quickly about the bond tokenization aspect that we mentioned in the previous video. Just a quick reminder, recap on that. And also, I just wanted to talk about, I see a lot of comments when we do LCX videos, or just in general in the community, about LCX's current price point and how does that reflect on people's perception of LCX as an exchange. And we must also understand like its life cycle, like where it is in terms of its growth pattern. So we'll just do a couple comparisons to some of the other exchanges out there. So I've got a bit of data and information around things like Binance, KuCoin, Coinbase as a few examples. There's multitude of exchanges out there, right? But of course, LCX does boast some aspects in regards to its regulation, albeit in the Liechtenstein areas at the moment. But this is certainly something that's incorporated heavily through the World Economic Forum and most of the European entities already. So this is something I really identify as very interesting for the exchange, but also for its potential growth in the near future. So we'll talk about it in a moment's time. Don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel and make sure you smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And you see on that left hand side, we've got an interview going live next week, premiering on the channel with the Digital Pound Foundation. Really excited about that, so we can for sure deep dive into that a bit more detail, and hopefully you'll join us for that. The live chat will be live, albeit as a pre-record. We can definitely converse back and forth on the live chat if we want to, not a problem, and I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. So hopefully everyone will look forward to that. That aside, guys, let's take a quick look at some of this recapped information. So recently we mentioned about this opportunity for a fixed yield bond. This is one of the first that's kind of been tokenized, to be honest. Unfortunately not available here in the UK because us silly sausages removed ourselves from the EU. Whether that's a good or a bad idea, I don't really care. But it's kind of annoyed me in some aspects because it makes things a bit more difficult for trade and the ability to get involved with some things like this. And I'm sure there'll be more of these kind of things as time goes by as well. But just to quickly mention, the EURT7 tokenized bond aspect is really interesting. It's pretty much ready for you to be able to get involved with right now. But you do need the minimum of €1,000, I believe, to get involved in this and go into I think it's a 2-year bond, actually. I have to double check that. But as I said, unfortunately not available here. But I just thought I'd do a quick reminder on that because it is really an interesting development through the tokenization of bonding and all that kind of stuff as well. So really interesting to see. That aside, quickly on this topic about LCX as an exchange. So as I mentioned, I get a lot of comments, or I see a lot of comments relating to people just like, not necessarily bad-mouthing LCX, but just either getting frustrated with the price point or trying to figure out like, hang on, this exchange is pretty trash, or it's not good enough yet, this, that, and the other. What we've got to remember, guys, is a lot of the exchanges out there have been out for a long time. And as I said, we'll go into a bit more detail about that. But you could argue, for example, Binance has been around for roughly around 5 years, similar to KuCoin. Coinbase and Kraken and all these kind of exchanges and trading platforms have been available for quite some time now, probably even maybe 10 years in some cases. So we've got to kind of understand like these new upcoming exchanges, how could they not necessarily be different, but how can they kind of coincide with this new next wave of people that are going to be coming into the space? Because there's no doubt in our minds over the next few years, especially with the development of CBDCs and the financial infrastructure changing, trade becoming more tokenized, as many other sectors will be as well, there's going to be an influx of people coming in, and it's going to be heavily probably focused around what exchanges will be fully regulated, what's the security and privacy aspects of these exchanges. Now we've seen over time, I use Binance, I use KuCoin, I used to use Coinbase, I used a couple of other exchanges and stuff as well. I've started using LCX just to get more familiar with it and try and find anything that is good or bad, not just for the videos, but I like to feed back to projects as well every now and then. That's how I think we can really develop and improve everything across the whole space. But for me, as time goes by, you're going to see a lot more people coming into the space and really identifying things like they do in the real world, like sustainability, and is this product or produce environmentally friendly? Where did it come from? Tracking, tracing, etc. And I think that's going to be very similar to how people utilize their financial platforms moving forward as well. And this is no different. So what we've got to understand is LCX is very new. Now, there was, I think, a change in either their name or the token a couple of years ago. But that aside, this exchange is a relatively new platform. Just recently, in the probably within the last 6 months, definitely have brought out the mobile application version of the exchange as well. And now you're starting to see the additional products and services that are going to be adding to this. We saw the bond one just a minute ago as a prime example of that. And as I said, I'm very, very interested in this exchange and project overall because of its collaborations and interactions with the likes of the World Economic Forum, and of course its regulatory power that it does have, albeit in a small region of EU at the moment. That will expand for sure as more people become to use it worldwide. But bear in mind, these guys are also utilizing themselves through things like the European Commission. So whether the regulation of Liechtenstein doesn't expand outwards for LCX usage, the fact of the matter is it's being integrated to all these big frameworks. So if you're within the EU structure anyway, it's kind of the whole same thing as time goes by. Hopefully we'll see a bit more transition towards the UK with that kind of stuff, as well as with the other exchanges as well, when it comes to regulation and the improvements on security, privacy, what we can and cannot do with our money. And I'm getting a bit tired still. Again, you see all these big exchanges coming back and forth about can you put money into your exchange, can you take it out, are the banks blocking it, not blocking it? And that needs to be really defined as to how much control are these things actually getting from us. Because the whole point in my head of blockchain properly is trying to get it more decentralized, or at least give you the opportunity to control your money the way you want to. I guess banks are fearing this. So there's a multitude of variables over the next few years, guys, particularly the next few years. And I mention this because, as I said, the RTGS system switching over in 2025. By the end of this month, March 2023, we're going to see, I think, over 60%, maybe even higher than that, 70% or so, countries worldwide and banks worldwide, adopting the ISO 20022 messaging compliance relating to the messaging aspects of finance. And then, as I said, over the next year or two, the real full-on developments of frameworks, the replacements of, or certainly the new integrations with blockchain and cryptography utilized through SWIFT and CHAPS here in particular in the UK, and worldwide systems as well. So we've got that going on. We've got banks under a lot of pressure because more and more people are losing trust and confidence in them and wanting to move their money and be in control of their money in various different ways. And this is what I'm trying to get everyone's mindset around right now, is that yes, they can go to Binance, they can go to KuCoin, Kraken, all the other exchanges, absolutely. But as I said, this new influx of people who are probably very aware right now of all the news channels and everything dictating about cryptocurrencies, security issues, or not, risks of trading, risks of holding your money in crypto, blah, 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 all the usual negative narrative that comes in bear cycles particularly. This is what a lot of the new mass audience will be very aware of, or at least in the forefront of their minds. So when they do come to use an exchange, when they're doing their research and everything like that, which most people do when they look at banks or where they're putting their money, they will do that. They will look for really intricate details like LCX provide already as a support mechanism and as a service mechanism. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm quite interested in this project, as amongst the other things that I've mentioned. But I also want to pinpoint this, guys. So if you remember, or those that are in the space or not in the space, Binance has been around, as I said, for about 5-6 years now. There's a few others that are older, and a lot of the bigger exchanges that people use on a regular basis were only about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, which is not a long time at all. And a lot of them came about in the beginning of those kind of like bull runs that happened around 2017-18. Obviously, we had the fluctuation down over the 2020 period, albeit I think it was only a few months, and then it accelerated higher and more users came in. Everyone was becoming more aware about the economy and is my money safe or not? where should I be putting my money? So Binance, interestingly, on this website here, Business of Apps, just going to pick out some things here for Binance in particular. And in fact, it mentions actually launch day of 2017. So bear all this in mind, that these guys as well started pretty much from scratch, right? Obviously, they had investors, they had people behind it. But there was no like full regulations as such at those times, and no users, right? So this started from nowhere, really, of people getting aware, marketing, brand awareness, all of that good stuff, right? Binance users, guys, 2017. So this is in, I believe, annual users 2017 to 2021 in millions, I believe. And you're looking at the millions, maybe even. I think that's actually billions, to be honest. I'm not quite sure. But you can see the staggering effect over the amount of years of users coming into this particular platform. Okay. And yes, they deal with loads of different cool things in the last few years, like NFTs, the launch pads, all of these great things. Whether LCX goes fully into those kind of things will remain to be seen. I think they need to get the fundamental and the basics right first. And we do see progression with the LCX exchange, even in the last few months, of improvements and interactions with people as well. The trading volume, which is even more interesting to me, is this growth pattern. You'd expect growth over years anyway, but if you imagine and think about particularly these years in relation to how good and bad those market trends were, it didn't have too bad a 2018-19 period. Here's the 2020 mark, where we had the big drop in March 2020, if you remember, and then a massive fluctuation upwards, raising awareness. People were bored, distracted, not going to work, working from home if they could, and there was loads of spare time in the afternoons and evenings for people to go, oh, I'm just going to do some investments, and because I can't spend money, I can't do anything, etc., etc. That creates a catalyst. Into 2021, we have that massive expansion. There's no 2022 data here just yet, but if I go onto this website here, you can see that the BUSD, in terms of its market capitalization, was absolutely huge. The abilities of its user base rising to 2.5 million in August 2022, which is absolutely phenomenal. This kind of takes these to really interesting numbers, of significant numbers, really, of that usage. I would question the difference between, I think this is Binance US, so I'm not sure if it encourages the whole entire Binance system overall, because those numbers don't match in my opinion. But you may have had a reduction in users. I find that very hard to believe. But the point being is that over 4 or 5 years, this has significantly grown, and the volumes have grown significantly, especially over the last 2-3 years. And you can see here how, as old as Coinbase is, FTX, that's a bit of a funny one to put on there, albeit, to be fair, this information is probably, it's not too old, January. I think FTX exploded by then, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I'm sure that would diminish. But you can see it's very ahead of the big competitors. And there are loads of exchanges, guys. You've got Mexi, mentioning KuCoin in a minute. You've got BitTrue, obviously, which I use quite a bit as well for some of the tokens. There's a multitude of them. And KuCoin in its own ways is absolutely substantial. Daily peak trading KuCoin spot exceeded $9 billion. This was around Q1 of 2022 last year. The incredible growth patterns that these exchanges have is phenomenal. And LCX is no different to how these kind of began. As I said, with the additional aspirations of what it can do and achieve with its regulatory power right now, and its integrations with organizations like the World Economic Forum, you must understand how much of a magnitude that is in terms of a relationship, especially as we go into the fourth industrial revolution, the real proper switchover to these new systems. So I just wanted to get that mindset behind people that actually, whether these exchanges are 10 years old, 5 years old, the fact of the matter is they are expanding, growing all the time, improving all the time. And LCX is at the very beginning stages. All these tokens, you remember like BNB? I think I was buying BNB like even back in 2020, I think it was like $10 or something. And even back way further, KuCoin I was buying at 20-30 cents, and it got up to like 20 odd dollars. You see the reasoning behind the token improvements of price movements in the exchange, which we'll go on to LCX right now actually to define this point even further. The fact of the matter is, more and more users that come into these exchanges and use them as switch over of fees. A lot of people use the tokens to pay fees and counteract that. A lot of people just invest in the exchange's tokens because they know the usability of that is increasing tenfold especially through bull cycles and things like this. you will start seeing this pattern. So it's great to prepare your minds as early as possible. We're in a bear momentum right now still, albeit we've had some nice fluctuating upward patterns over the last few months. We're still in this bear cycle. When this does switch over into a bull cycle, I honestly believe that'll be around 2025, albeit we'll have some mini cycles between now and then as well. These are the kind of identifiable points. If you look at the BNB token, the KCS token of KuCoin, for example, and all the other tokens like BTR for Bitrue, all of these things, they started at really low fundamental points. LCX here back in December, for example, was 3 cents. It had a nice rise up recently around the end of January time to 16 cents. And that's nowhere near, and bear in mind, guys, to be honest, these are launch prices and you do expect prices to come down, stabilize, get some support levels and start building itself up with the awareness, the momentum, the shilling, all of that stuff that goes on around the communities, on Twitter, etc. But more importantly, the usage of LCX will continue to increase, users will increase, and this is where it gets really exciting. If you imagine those pattern things that we showed you about Binance and KuCoin being related to what LCX could do, it's really exciting. And I honestly, like, Binance and KuCoin, fantastic exchanges, as are others, but LCX, in my opinion, is one of the most professional feels to it. The way that you have to log in, all of this stuff, the abilities of what it's got in, as I mentioned, with its partnerships, its relations, are really important to understand and think about as well in the background. How powerful this can be and how powerful it will be used. So price point wise, there's a great opportunity, in my opinion, even at these 10-cent stages or lower, which I do believe we will come and test back at these lower regions. We'll go into that in a second. There's a massive opportunity for the years ahead to make some really good growth opportunity in these years to come. And that's just the years to come. I'm talking about also 5 years, 10 years from now, how big this exchange can be and has the ability to be. So hopefully those thoughts are being thought about by you guys out there. I'm not saying to definitely go and buy this token. You obviously need to do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor. These are just opinions. But I've seen this over and over again with new exchanges over the last couple of years, 5 years, 10 years. The patterns are clear. And the background of LCX is very interesting and important to understand significantly what they're up to. So guys, performance wise on this price point, as I said, we're floating around this 10-cent mark, literally on this fib level here. I do anticipate us to try and test these lower regions again. The previous LCX video, I can't remember when we did it, but we did look at this area of interest to buy. We hit that top area most recently on a couple of occasions, and I'm just seeing if we come back down to those areas, because if we do break that support line, we will for sure be testing these lower regions again. I do think there's an opportunity at the lower levels around that sort of 5 cent, 6 cent mark again at some point before we do a big flip around whenever that might be. That being said, from a DCA perspective, I'm just waiting for a couple more days to see what the stability is like on this fib level. If it does come back down to these areas, these are great opportunist areas, 8 to 10 cents right now, even up to 12 cents for a potential DCA opportunity or the first batch. And for those that are new or don't understand DCA, this is a good risk management solution, to the sense that you don't just chuck all your money in straight away because you've been paid or whatever. Identify where we are stabilizing with the price points, but also the opportunity that actually this may come down to lower regions and we want to have some capital available to be able to put that in. And DCAing outwards is where we have the reflected position selling off on the way up in that similar manner. You don't know, you can't predict these markets. You can do a good job of trying to guess and get very close to it, but this market can be very volatile and sting people heavily when they go, oh, I've just seen an LCX video, I must chuck $1,000 in or $100 in, and not think about it. With the opportunity that actually we need to look at it historically. Some people might think LCX has been going on for a long time as a token. It hasn't. So you need to identify that actually we're still in a discovery phase almost with LCX. So there's loads of variables about this, and the RSI data that we're looking at the bottom left here, right now for me personally is too high on that 14-day for me to do a bit of a DCA. That's why I'm waiting for some stability over the next few days and potentially a drop down to this 8 cent level. That's where I think we'll see the sub 45 14-day RSI. The 28 days on 50, that's too middle ground for me as of 0 to 100. I do like to again see that coming down to the 45 to 40 mark. And that's where you start seeing a bit of stability to say, actually, if I'm a daily trader or a weekly trader or just looking to accumulate at the lowest possible sustainable prices, you can see these indicators coming into fruition quite nicely to indicate those for you. And it means that there's more upside than there is downside, obviously. It doesn't mean anything more so than that, really, as an identifier for people who are regularly trading. For me, I'm a long-term holder and accumulator, but I still use that RSI data to determine some potentially good, stable, lower points. So as I said, there could be opportunity at these lower regions back to 5 cents to test these areas at some point, but we'll have to see that. All we can do at the moment is look at what we've got in front of us, or right now, see where it's come from historically, what are the support lines and the potential resistance areas as well, and identify some potential buy opportunities with that. So I have my limit orders always with LCX at the moment around this 8 cent mark, and I do still have a big batch of limit orders around this sort of 5.5 cent mark too. If they come in, brilliant. I've accumulated more at lower prices. If they don't, fine. I've had that DCA opportunity along the way to get LCX in my portfolio as much as I can at the variable prices. Performance wise, it's not doing too bad actually, and in fact it's one of the very few assets that's still got green across most of the board. 95% up on the 6 months and 219% up on the 3 months. Really interesting to see that against a lot of the other assets out there, and still up on the week, slightly down on the month. This is why particularly I'm interested in that movement of the 14-day and the 28-day moves on that RSI, because I'm seeing a bit of that negative pattern creeping in, and that will pull that 3 month down a bit more as time goes by as well. We'll have to see. It could stabilize and flip itself back up for a next run. We have to see what happens. We don't have a mystery or one of those mystic balls, unfortunately. So it's looking really positive. And with all the other things that we just mentioned about this project in particular, it's definitely worth noting all of that, researching for yourselves, and really identifying like what LCX is about, its backing, its partnerships, who's behind it as a team, all of that stuff, which we did in our intro video. But really understanding the future, guys. It's the same narrative with all the utility tokens and things that are very heavily involved with big organizations, big frameworks around the continents, everything from a parliamentary level. This is what I'm most interested in. And I sit there and I think about all the exchange tokens that I've purchased over the last few years. And some of them I've missed. And I come in a tad late, not massively late. Even with BNB, where I was buying it at lower prices, I was buying it at $25 and it shot up to like $400 odd in that year. It's that opportunity. Once mass adoption comes in again, the awareness comes in again, users come in again, that token fluctuates up massively because of its utility as an opportunity, as I said, to counteract fees in exchanges, but also people invest in it because of that upward rise in usage of that token and potentially make some trades on that. So guys, few things to think about with LCX. Hopefully this video has been informative and at least given you something to think about, and maybe put some minds at rest when people talk potentially about LCX isn't doing anything price-wise or it's a terrible exchange. You must understand it's very new and there's so much more growth and opportunity and improvement to happen with it. So let us know in the comments below if you're holding this token, not holding it, or have various different comments and thoughts about LCX. Leave those in the comments below. As I said, look out for the Digital Pound Foundation premiere next week as well. I will be attending the Digital Pound event next Thursday. I'm looking forward to covering that also. But until then, guys, and the next video, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.